Why are we experiencing brownouts here in the Philippines? That's the topic of today's talk. I found this very interesting, simplistic article on Meralco's website. It's entitled, Why Are We Experiencing Rotating Brownouts? Now, folks, you hear me talk. I just did a video about what we were doing during the last brownout. I don't even know why this thing came up. I think I was researching rolling brownout. Like a rolling brownout is when there's not enough power supply, so they'll like give this part of the city electricity for 4 hours, then roll it over here. You know, everybody has to basically do their part and do without electricity for so many hours per day. They call it a rolling brownout. This article is calling it a rotating brownout, and there's a technical term. But I just thought I would read this because it pretty much basically explains why there's so many brownouts here. And I think it's 10 topics here, 10 bullet points, what have you. So let's just get into it. It's a talking head video. The scenery is not going to change. Could call this a podcast, but I just figured I would get this in before Fatima and Forrest G get home from school this morning. So number one, why are we experiencing brownouts? Brownouts happen because we do not have enough power supply. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, NGCP, issues a red alert notice in the Luzon grid because there is insufficient power supply. This is usually caused by unplanned power plant outages. Power plants are owned by companies such as, Outages Power, First Generation Core, San Miguel, etc. When the need arises, there is a possibility that manual load dropping, MLD, I think I like the term rolling brownout better than manual load dropping, or rotational brownouts will take effect because of the supply deficiency. Meralco updates its customers on the schedules and affected areas regularly throughout the day on TV, print, radio, and social media. Okay, so that's point number one. Pretty simplistic, right? Now, at some point in time down in Cebu City, I haven't experienced it anytime recently, but several years ago, Cebu City had a rolling brownout on a daily basis for a while. And again, this part of the city from say 8 to 12 would not have electricity, and then at 12 they would roll it over here to this part of the city that wouldn't have it from 12 to 4. And you live with that on a daily basis. I don't know if they're still doing it there or just when there's too much demand, but they also did it on an island that I was staying on. We don't have that problem here. Better knock on wood. Okay. Number two, so why are we not building more power plants? Now, if you're not familiar, there is no nuclear power here in the Philippines. There's one nuclear plant that was built and completed, the 70s, 80s. It was never fueled. It's still sitting there. It's north of Manila on Bataan. It was never fueled, and there's been discussion about fueling that thing up. I mean, it's a 30-year-old structure, 30-year plus, somewhere in there. I don't have any stats in front of me. I don't think it's a good idea to put nuclear power in anything that's been sitting in the elements for decades, but that's just me. I'm not a nuclear engineer. Okay, for now we continue to work with the rest of the energy industry in order to manage the challenged supply situation right now. This is a long-standing issue that needs the government and the power industry to work together. We are cognizant of the urgent need to add more capacity to the system through additional power plants that will in turn provide the power necessary to support our growing population and an economy that is on an upswing. There are power supply agreements PSAs, pending with the Energy Regulatory Commission, the ERC, which, if approved, will mean more power plants being built and additional capacity to the grid. Okay, so it's no big secret here. It's no big secret that there's not enough power plants to meet at least peak demand periods, especially during the summer. And so there needs to be an additional capacity. There needs to be more supply. Number 3, how can we increase supply of electricity? We need more power plants. Did I mention that this is very simple? I'm glad they made it simple, right? Okay, we need more power plants. If more power plants are built, then this will increase availability and reliability of power. Okay, reliability. That's a big key word right there. Okay, because even if you're not on a rolling brownout schedule, or you're notified of some type of rotational brownout, what do they call it? Something load dropping, manual load dropping schedule. In certain places, electricity here in the Philippines is much more reliable than others. Knock on wood, we've had it pretty good here. And we're way out in the province. We're 5 hours north of Cebu City by bus. I call it the last train stop on the peninsula, unless you want to count Maya Port. We have very few brownouts here, knock on wood. The village over there has a probably 2 to 3 times frequency what we do. Even flow across the cow pasture will sometimes not have electricity we do, or vice versa. And there's another point later on that'll discuss like places where it's more reliable. It's common sense, but something you might not think about. Okay, take for example, you only need 4 tires to make your car run, but just in case you encounter a flat tire, you should have a spare in the trunk. The same goes with the supply of electricity. When there's an increase in demand and more people are using air conditioners and electric fans to cool themselves from the summer heat, we should have enough electricity to spare. And again, that's the times when it's really bad, because everybody is trying to cool off. Everybody's running their ACs, running them on full blast. This time of year, like right now, or once you get some rain, the rainy season, if it's raining, obviously it cools things down. All these are factors. All right, let's move on to point number 4. Why are the current power plants not producing enough electricity? Okay, good question. The Luzon grid, where Meralco sources power, has 137 power plants. Now again, this is not talking about the entire Philippines. This is just focusing on Meralco, their grid there on Luzon. So they have 137 power plants, half of which are 15 years or older. Okay, so think about that. Half the plants are 15 years at least. Any power plant requires annual maintenance, and the older the plant is, the higher the tendency for occasional malfunctions that lead to shutdowns that are unscheduled. Again, all this is common sense, but it's a lot different if you're driving a brand new Toyota versus a 15-year-old Chrysler. All right? If you're driving that 15-year-old Chrysler, shit's going to break down about every time you leave the driveway, right? Other power plants, given their advanced age, love that, advanced age, it means they're old as dirt, are no longer operating at maximum levels, and occasionally will make an emergency shutdown because of malfunctions. So they're being politically correct to say half of those power plants out of the 137 are just, junk. Absolute junk, right? All right, so what number was that? Number 4. Number 5. How long will we continue to have these brownouts? On a day-to-day basis, it depends if the existing power plants are running and if there is sufficient power in the grid. Power plant shutdowns may cause supply deficiency and, in effect, manual load dropping. Back to the planned rolling brownouts. In the long term, if demand continues to grow at a faster pace than supply, we may be facing more instances of yellow and red alerts. Hopefully, more power plants are built soon so as to add more capacity to the grid. Now, I want to bring up a point here when it talks about, growing at a faster pace. Maybe I'll just save that to the end because it talks about the population increasing. Obviously, if your population is increasing, you're going to need more electricity. As the economy in any type of manufacturing sector or any type of IT sector moves in, it's obviously going to need a significant amount more of electricity. All this is common sense, but what's happening here? The Philippines, unless it's changed, is the fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia. Companies setting up call centers and outsourced type operations here in the Philippines. It's energy hungry. You got people sitting there in front of computers all day. You got servers running. Manufacturing is obvious. What about the fact that more and more foreigners are moving here? Man, it's like every day there's a new YouTube channel that pops up on my feed, and this is why I don't believe in AI. AI, I have no faith in, right? We watch camping videos from Alaska or the Rocky Mountains, or I watch camera reviews. But because I'm uploading videos in the Philippines, the algorithm just assumes that I want to watch videos about the Philippines, which is the farthest thing. But every day, you've got new people moving here, popping up on YouTube. And there seems to be a huge trend of foreigners moving here now. Well, it's my opinion that the average foreigner is going to use 10 times the amount of electricity that a local will. I just base my theory on that. You look at the Village as an extreme case, right? Their electric bill over there in the Village is like 350 pesos a month. They don't have a ref. They don't have an air con. 350 pesos, $7. Just say $10 a month. Where ours is 200. So we use 20 times the amount of electricity than her family in the Village does with the same amount of people. Okay, our neighbors just here in this little suburban type community. Okay, you can go over there. They just post the light bills. You can just sit there and browse the light bills. Ours is the highest light bill out of, 10 houses, 12 houses. By far. We're batting 10,000. The average neighbors are betting, 1,000 pesos. So we're using 10 times what our neighbors do, and we're using 20 times what people in the Village use. So, I thought that was interesting too. So, moving right along. Let's see, what was I on? What number was I on? Was that number 5? Yeah, number 6. I'm trying to read this without my old man glasses. And when they make the little columns like that, I can make it big, but then they put the text all the way across the screen. Probably easier if I just put my glasses on. Why can't Meralco give its customers advance warnings on the rotating brownout schedules? Okay, Meralco sources power from power plants connected to the Luzon grid, controlled by the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, which majority is owned by the SM Group and State Grid Corporation of China. I don't know what that means. All I know when I see a word in there that says China owned state. So let me read it again. Okay. National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, which majority is owned by the SM Group and State Grid Corporation of China. That's what it says. I'm not trying to be political and just talk about electricity. I just read what the website says. These power plants are not owned nor operated by Meralco, and therefore Meralco has no visibility over its operations. We advise our customers of the brownouts as soon as the information on the power supply situation is shared with us by the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, the NGCP, which has the information of the volume that plants in the Luzon grid is able to supply, are able to supply. So anyhow, Meralco is who you pay your bill to, right? But they're really not in control. It's like they're 2 steps down from being notified. The plants are going to notify the national grid, and they will notify them. You can't get blood from a turnip. That's what we rednecks say in the backwoods of Mississippi. If there's not enough supply and there's too much demand, your power's going to go out every now and then. Okay? In turn, both the NGCP and the power plants who may have unplanned outages due to the age of the plant, as discussed previously. So there you go again, talking about basically politically correct way that I interpret it is just saying the damn plants are too damn old. And they're putting it in a very politically correct manner. I interpret that as they're old as shit, they're in bad shape, and that's why they break down all the time. But that's just me. Number 7, who decides which areas will be part of the rotating brownouts? Meralco prioritizes areas that do not have critical areas of operations, such as hospitals, airports, military bases, and the likes. Now, again, this should be Captain Obvious, but you have to think about that, right? If you're doing research about where you want to live, if you're going to come over here and retire, I just talked about it previous video about asking people, the locals, hey, how often are there brownouts here? It's a beautiful island. I want to move here. Make sure you ask how often are the brownouts. And if you're a person that has to make phone calls every morning, on a schedule, you got to be connected 24/7, or you're just one of those people that has to watch Netflix all day and night, well, those little brownouts, 2, 3, 4 hours long, could impact your life. What you would perceive to be in a very negative way, just that little bit of inconvenience. You're going to live, but the point is, and the point this thing is making, number 7, is that obviously if there are major hospitals in that grid, in that zone, in that cluster, whatever their terminology is, it's going to get priority over any other area. So if you live next to that hospital, it would make sense, if you're in that hospital zone, your electricity is going to be more stable than Fatima's family over here in the village out in the middle of a sugarcane field with no critical infrastructure in sight. It makes sense. Airports. Obviously, it's pretty important for airports to have electricity. Speaking of that, Manila Airport has suffered some brownouts not too long ago. Was it this year or last year? I lose track of time. Used to drink a lot. But the damn airport has lost power. Then think about that, an airport losing power with all these international flights coming in and going. It's a huge disruption. I dodged a bullet on that by one day. I left out one day, one night, and then the next day is when their power went out and it totally screwed stuff up. But it makes sense, obviously. They're going to dedicate more resources to that area, that grid, that cluster. And I think the terminology's in here. That serves the airport. The same with military bases. Okay, anything major like that. And then the farther you get away from one of these major areas, the less important you are. It just makes sense, right? So, where do you want to live? Well, if you really need stable power, maybe you live close to a hospital, a military base, or the airport. Number 8. Why is it that my neighbor has lights and my house is brownout? Houses and establishments are grouped per circuit. That's the word I was looking for. And so it is possible that a unit beside you may be in a different group. Okay, so that's the word I was looking for, folks. We're in a different circuit than her sister across the cow pasture. The village is on a different circuit, even though we're, within a dozen clicks of one another. Well, I mean, us and Flo, we're probably less than a click apart, and we're in different circuits. Number nine. How do I find out if there's a brownout in my area? Okay, download the app, blah, blah, blah. I already got hotlines and apps, right? Here's how I find out if there's a brownout. Damn, the lights just went out. There's a brownout. Step number 2. Fatima, are you sure you paid the light bill? Uh-oh. Okay, there's a brownout. A 2-step process. Fatima takes it to 3-step. She goes outside, looks up and down the street. She'll look up and down the street, right? Nobody's got lights. And then she'll talk to the neighbor across the street and be like, hey, do you have power? Now they're talking to Bisaya. Do you have power? No, do you have power? They like ask these obvious questions when the whole street's dark. Anyhow, it's comical to me. I got a 2-step, she got a 3-step. No need for an app. What can I do to prepare for these brownouts? Let's see. Rechargeable lamps, charge your phone, and power banks. All that good stuff, right? Battery powered radios keep you informed. Okay, all that good stuff. Okay, my biggest tip about the brownouts has nothing to do with cell phones and all that stuff, right? It's about water. You should always, living in the Philippines, have a couple of big old trash cans full of water. Because when the power goes out, the water goes out most of the time. Okay? So you need to have 2 big old trash cans full of water so you can bathe, flush the toilet. That's really what you need to have on hand. Who cares if your cell phone works or not? It's not like in America where you got to have emergency, call 911. In my experience, if you have any type of medical emergency here, you drag yourself to the road and yell, "Trike!" That's 911. Get a trike to take you to the hospital. So cell phones, all that stuff, it's not important to me. The only thing that's very important is water. Make sure you have some water, 2 trash cans full, and you'll pretty much be okay. Now, we cook with gas, so the electricity going out, we don't use electricity except for the rice cooker. But as long as you got a gas stove, at least one little single burner, whether you use it routinely or not, you keep a little single burner, small tank of gas. Now you can cook. That yellow 11 kilogram tank, that's about the size as an average backyard grill in America. That thing lasts for months. But again, just make sure you got water. That's really all you need, and you'll make it through these brownouts. But if you run out of water, that's when like desperation starts setting in. You can't flush the toilet. You get too hot. You can't throw a scoop of water over your head. That's the biggest thing right there. But there you go, folks. So there's 10 points, and they have about a 3-minute YouTube video. I haven't watched it, but maybe it sums up in 3 minutes what I just spent 20 minutes talking about. But I just found that quite interesting because she asked me the question, why are there so many brownouts here? Well, Fatima, when you watch this video before we post it, now you know why there's so many brownouts. And it just boils down to not enough supply to meet the demand. And let me add to that. The middle class here is growing. It's growing, historically, in my opinion here, you had the ultra rich and just the dirt poor. The middle class here is coming on up. What happens when a middle class starts to rise up? Well, everybody's getting motorbikes. There's more motorbikes on the road, which will evolve into people buying more cars, which once people start getting more and more cars and more car loans, that's the traffic the traffic stalemate. You see it in Thailand in certain places. When a lot of these roads were built in places like Southeast Asia, there weren't no damn cars, right? They were like bicycle foot traffic. Not many people had cars. Now, with the middle class rising up, more and more people are getting cars. Everybody's getting a motorbike. So all that traffic is rising up, and so will the demand from the electrical grid. As that middle class, now what are they buying? Washers, maybe not dryers. Nobody here uses a dryer really, but they're buying washing machines, buying big screen TVs. Things that if you go over to Fatima's village, there are no washing machines. Her mother doesn't have a refrigerator. They don't have a big screen TV. I mean, literally, they have a 350 peso light bill. But what do people do? As you climb up in the middle class, you start getting these appliances, air conditioners. So the demand is going to go like this with the rising economy and the rise of the middle class. And unless they get to building some power plants quick, fast, and in a hurry, the reliability of electricity is not going to get better. It's going to get worse because of the growing population, more industry, everything I've just said, right? Don't make any sense unless you start building to increase the supply. The demand is increasing, which means the reliability is going down. That's my opinion. So I'm not bringing up any secrets. I'm just being Captain Obvious. This is no secret here. Everybody knows this. And whatever plans are in the works, that's way above my pay grade. Okay? I just make sure I got 2 trash cans full of water. Life is pretty good. Hope you enjoyed this video, folks. Again, these talking head videos, really, you just call it a podcast, just push play. Maybe while you're trying to go to sleep. My voice will just lower your blood pressure, calm you down. You can just fade off into a peaceful 8-hour sleep before you got to hit the grind the next day. Thanks for joining me. See you guys on the next one. I'm trying to lower my light bill. One more thing. I've been trying to lower my light bill. Take that 10,000, cut it in half. Before we were running 2 air cons basically all day and 1 at night. And y'all can see I'm sitting here with a fan going, got the house wide open. I'm trying to cut that thing down to $5K. $100. $100 I would not complain about. $200, it just kills me. Just it's too much. But it's hot in the Philippines. That's why I'm thinking about moving to Baguio. All right, I'm out of here. Peace out.